tuned for today's episode of Breaking the Biz, an informative podcast where we dive into the world of entertainment by interviewing seasoned professionals who have made their mark in the industry. Gain invaluable insights as they share their personal journeys, offering advice on navigating the dynamic landscape of the entertainment industry. Whether you're an aspiring actor, musician, filmmaker, author, animator, or any creative soul, tune in for expert career guidance, insider tips, and first-hand accounts on breaking into the entertainment industry. Get ready to unlock the secrets behind successful careers and fuel your own passion for the limelight. Please remember to like this video and to subscribe to our channels for more great conversations.
Greetings from Breaking the Biz, brought to you by Yes I Can Unity through Music and Education. I'm William Felber, your navigator through the intriguing universe of the entertainment industry, as revealed by the visionaries and creators who bring it to life. Stay tuned as we delve into diverse insights from the forefront of entertainment, hearing from pioneers, creators, and agents of change. Prepare for a journey filled with tales of innovation, resilience, and the undying quest for artistic brilliance.
Awesome. I want to thank everyone for being right on time. Welcome to Breaking the Biz podcast with the Yes I Can crew. We have got a great guest with us. We have Jimmy Puissegur, who is the senior editor at Hammer Creative. He is a Los Angeles-based editor with over 19 years of experience, specializing in advertising for film, television, and commercials, experience in working with a wide array of networks and studios, cutting a variety of genres. Involved with the development of in-house mentoring program, offering guidance and opportunity for assistant editors to learn and excel. Jimmy is proficient in Avid, Final Cut, and Adobe Premiere. And on that note, I want to thank you, Jimmy, for making time for us tonight.
Yeah, of course. It's great to do this. I always want to make sure everybody knows that this job exists, because I certainly didn't when I was in school.
And it's funny you mentioned that. That's the whole point of our program, is that career exploration, because everyone always goes, I want to be part of this industry. And usually they think they got to be Leonardo DiCaprio or they got to be Spielberg. And there are millions of jobs in between the two. And believe it or not, they kind of all pay very well too. So getting your foot into the industry is extremely lucrative. So that is definitely why we try to help be the catalyst to lift individuals or just expose them to opportunities, just like you mentioned. So I want to talk, my first question to you is, when did you fall in love with movies and media?
Since a very, very young age. That was basically like our family time growing up. Was everybody kind of huddled around watching films. My parents were huge film buffs, and we went to the movies, and they kind of took me to see things I probably shouldn't have saw at early ages, but whatever they were watching, I was watching. So, and I just kind of fell in love with all of it. And like I said, that's literally how we connected as a family, was like we would all gather around and have these movie nights multiple times a week. And it's just stuck. I do it with my kids now. And it's from an early age, very early age.
So it comes full circle, and you even mentioned seeing things that maybe you shouldn't have seen. And
Right.
in the background, we were talking a little bit earlier about the Shining paintings all over. What was the first horror movie that you saw?
Ooh, I definitely saw The Shining when I was a little kid. I remember seeing the original Nightmare on Elm Street right around the time when it first came out. So I was probably like 9 or 10. So it was probably an inappropriate upbringing, but like I said, they didn't really shield us from anything. And yeah, I don't know if that's a good way to parent, but yeah, I loved it all. I fell in love with horror movies really young. Like that was always my favorite. So,
And horror films obviously is your favorite genre. Is that where you knew you wanted to work in and be involved in horror?
In some capacity, like we would always make like our own. When we were kids, we would, everybody would make their own. We'd do our own little editing VCR from VCR to VCR. I don't know. The kids now probably don't even know what that is, but
I remember.
VCRs. Yeah, we used to have to cut from like you play on one VCR record, and we used to shoot with these like high 8 cameras, and it was we would do our own little movies that were probably terrible to watch. I wish I still had some of them just to see what they looked like, but yeah, from a young age we were kind of making our own stuff, and everybody thinks everybody wants to be a director or make films when they're young if you're into that, and so that's kind of how you end up doing what I do. I'm pretty sure everybody who does what I do went to LA looking to have a career making films.
Okay. So let's talk about your education and how you ended up kind of doing what you're doing. In school, were you part of a film class? What was your education?
Yeah, so I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, and so I went to school at LSU. And there probably is now, but then there wasn't really so much a dedicated film program. What you did then was mass communications, a mass comm degree, which was they covered film and they covered radio, and it was basically kind of a mix of all that stuff. And it was, like I said, there wasn't like a dedicated film school in Louisiana, which I don't know, maybe there is now. But that was the closest thing I could get to it, and that came from like how I really got into it, like how I decided I wanted to cut and edit was we started making skateboard videos when we were younger. Like we would cut videos, and that kind of progressed into me like cutting skate videos for like local shops and stuff around town in New Orleans, and that's when I just knew I wanted to do something with editing, and I didn't know what, but I kind of hit the limit in Louisiana because I was doing I got a job right out of school with public broadcast, and we were just kind of like an assistant editor, and I mean it wasn't anything exciting, it was a lot of like documentaries and stuff, but so that's when we ended up moving to California.
Okay.
And that was right around the time. It was actually around. It wasn't because of Hurricane Katrina, but it was around the time of Hurricane Katrina.
Definitely a good time to say peace out, New Orleans, with that.
Yeah, like I said, it was planned, but it just happened to kind of coincide with that.
Okay. And you mentioned, doing the public broadcasting and the editing. Was that an internship that you got through the college?
Yes. Yeah, it was an internship, and my wife was an art major, and one of her professors, her husband, he worked there as a producer, and so they kind of had a way in, but yeah, it was like an internship, which turned into kind of like a low paid entry level job, but it still wasn't super exciting because it was, like I said, it wasn't like what I wanted to be doing. But
Right.
you certainly have to start somewhere, and you'll see I started over many times as we get through this story.
And it's all good. I think that's one of the important lessons is that you can, do something, fail, get better at it.
Right.
There's ups and downs. There's no just straight to the trophy, so to speak. Did you want to do music videos? Obviously, the skating and the music kind of go hand in hand. Did you ever dabble into music videos?
I never did. When we got to LA, I got a job cutting Well, I was assistant, then I started cutting commercials for a company in Torrance, and that was fine for a bit because it was new and it wasn't documentary, but it still wasn't like super creative, I mean, it's commercial, so basically everything's kind of storyboarded out, and you kind of know what you're doing. And then also on that job, they had me traveling quite a bit, and because I would fly to different filming locations, and they wanted rough cuts and assemblies done, and then I would basically be on site to get that footage from the day, rough cut it in a hotel room and put it on an FTP site for them to pull editors back in LA to pull down and get going on it. And then I would be like off to the next city. So basically for those few years, I was literally like flying out of LA on a Monday and flying back to LA on a Friday, and then doing it again the following week. So that started being like a real grind after a while.
Okay. And this is obviously way before Dropbox.
Yes. Yeah.
So you do that for a while. What comes next? Because you're obviously, it's doing what you want to do, but not doing what you want to do.
Right. So at that time, my wife was doing graphic design, and she met somebody at work, and we started hanging out. We were going to get together with her and her boyfriend, and she's like, "Oh, they'll have a lot in common. They both love horror films, and they're both editors." And I was like, "Oh, cool. I wonder what he does." So he cut movie trailers, and this is how I found out this job existed. We hung out, and he told me what he did, and I thought I didn't even think that was a job. I had no clue. I just figured. I guess I didn't really ever think about how those things got made. I guess I just assumed they were done at the studio, but I found out that there's a lot of companies that specialize in that kind of marketing, and I just thought it was the coolest job I'd ever heard of. So I immediately was like, how do I get involved in this, and what can I do? And so what he did for me was he had me start like taking some of my favorite movies. Like, and I never forget, the first one I did was The Shining. I ripped the DVD, and he sent me like a bin full of like sound design, like sound effects and stuff like that. And basically said, "Hey, break the movie down, like it's ripped, break it all down and try to cut your own trailer with it." And so I did that and realized just how hard that it is, like to come up with something that flows and that kind of has that 3-act story arc. And it was really hard. But he like kind of helped me out. I would like send it to him, and he would like give me notes on it. And then I would do another film. I think I don't know which one I did. It was another like 80s movie. And so I did that a bunch of times. And when I got like 2 or 3 decent ones together, he worked at Buda Jones at the time. And they're always looking for people. All these companies are always looking for people, especially at entry level, because they want everybody to kind of grow through their company. And so they were hiring a PA. So, and a PA is basically just a runner. Like, you're like doing all like the odd jobs. You're putting furniture together, desks together. And so basically I started completely over again, and like went from being like an editor at a commercial Envision Group in Torrance to being like the bottom of the barrel, like like a little over minimum wage runner. And how that works is like basically it's kind of up to you how long you're going to be that. So I got in there, and like I talked to we made a deal with my wife, like, "Hey, look, things are going to be very tight for a while, but this is something that I know that I could do for the rest of my life and be totally happy doing it." And so I did it. And so I would get to work early, and I would stay late because was always empty edit bays. So I would get to work early, stay at work late, cut on anything they had like laying around, any scripts they had, I would cut, and I would show it to anybody who would look at it. And I ended up only having to do the PA thing for 2 months, and then they made me an assistant editor. And then that was another place that I didn't want to stay either, because that's basically just being a helper for the editor, like pulling all the footage and doing preps and just doing all the legwork. Not really the creative, but just all of the legwork that goes along with the creative. So I did that and kept doing my thing, like getting to work early, staying late, going in on weekends. And finally, while I was still an assistant, I finished the first TV spot. I think it was one of the early paranormal movies, maybe like Paranormal 2 or 3. But while I was an assistant, my first TV spot finished. And then after that, it just you kind of start getting a little more confident, and you kind of start learning how to structure these things. And I started finishing more and more TV spots. And the great thing about companies like that is they let you go at your own pace. Like, they started feeding me TV spots. And then once they think you're ready, they'll start giving you like full on like teasers and trailers, which, can range from 90 to 2.5. Well, now with the internet, things go a lot longer now. I've seen 3.5 minute trailers online now. But so yeah, that's how I ended up doing it and getting my foot in the door there. But again, like, I had to restart. You kind of have to, so you get to where you want to be. Like, once you know you're where you want to be, like, don't be scared to start at the bottom, because like, you're only going to be at the bottom as long as you let yourself be there. Because there are other people that came through that company who spent a lot of time in that PA position, and there were people that were assistants when I was when I was the PA, that were still assistants when I had just jumped over them and become editor, and then on to senior editor. And some of those people were still sitting in those seats. So it's just really the drive you have. And I mean, for me, it was like, because we had a kid, and I didn't have the luxury of taking my time. I had to like start kind of working my way through this and try to get back to at least where I was financially, so my wife didn't have to hold the burden of everything. But yeah, so it was a lot on her too, to help me get to where I wanted to be. But yeah, and that was a long time ago, and I've just still been doing it since. Like, it's a super, it's a thankless job, and then it's a rewarding job, because it could be a grind often, but once you get something over the finish line, it's always like worth it. It's always so worth it. So
I want to talk and break down a few of the things that you said, because it's important. It's always okay to keep going until you find exactly what it is you want to do.
right.
And you mentioned going down to a PA, and I liked how you said you could stay down there as long as you want, or you can really prove yourself and show that you bring value to the table.
Right.
Sometimes you can go in there and it is all about learning. A production assistant, even though it is, all those things like building the tables and getting the coffee and learning, if you're young and you're in a position where you don't know how everything works, it's a great opportunity to learn all of the moving parts. One of the things that you mentioned that I think is very important is people can see your work ethic, and how like, someone can see somebody's drive, and the fact of getting there early. That's like one thing that obviously I always pay attention to, the people who are getting there early, and then even staying late and just being able to work on your craft. We had somebody who was at K-Rock and did the very similar thing. Wanted, was cutting commercials, but wanted to do more than that, and would get there early, but then also would learn the entire board and start running shows even when he wasn't getting paid, which then led to him becoming a really a big time producer, and then eventually getting to work with the Beastie Boys and other things. But again, took that opportunity of that free time when there's no one in there to work on that equipment. So I think that's great. And it's just also giving you an opportunity to really show what you can do by editing and cutting things down. The other thing is, it's never a bad thing to ask questions. And you were kind of like, when you met that individual, it's natural networking. It's like, wow, I didn't know that was a job. Tell me more. What is, like, how could I get into that field? A lot of the individuals on this call always go like, networking is so difficult and it gets me out of my comfort zone. But when indeed you're in a position where you meet somebody and it's something that you like and you can just talk about what it is, it's a little easier to do. So asking those questions and getting that opportunity and learning and getting your foot in the door is very important. And then just continuing to climb. And once you are dependable, people know you're dependable, and they're going to give you more projects, just like you mentioned. But what I loved is when you told your wife, if you can help me hold down the fort just a little bit longer, if I do this for the rest of my life, I know I'll be happy. And sometimes individuals work job after job searching for what makes them happy. So to be able to, leave New Orleans, find exactly what it is that you're like, yeah, I could do this. I think that's very important to highlight. And movie previews are honestly what gets you to go, ooh, I'm going to go spend $20 on, for me and you, our tickets probably were $4.50 or something like that to go to a movie. Now it's like $20 to go to a movie. Like you have to be sucked in on that, on the preview. And that's, me going to the movies. One of my favorite things is seeing what's coming out. So previews are extremely important. The company that you talked about, is it Buddha Jones?
Yeah.
Do they also do posters?
No, they never did. They never got into print. A lot of the companies that do trailers and marketing also do print, but that's the one area that they never got into. They have games division, they have content division. Even like back in the day, we had like a EPK division that did like behind the scenes content for like DVD releases, which that has since gone. But they still do like all of the like digital and all that stuff, but never got into print.
Does your wife do the anything with the advertising of the print?
No, she does. She's just she's an artist. I'm not sure, shouldn't say just an artist, but she's an artist. She does. She's a painter, and she got into graphic design for a minute while we were in LA, and but she didn't want to work for anybody. She just wanted to kind of do her thing. So now she just does her work and her artwork, and
okay,
yeah. So yeah,
it's interesting, when you're talking about like the DVD content and the behind the scenes, which was all very needed to sell a $25 DVD,
right.
and now we think about it like that's a dying breed too. The Blu-rays, the DVD. I mean, we started off with the VHS, but all of them are gone now. Like everything is just completely downloaded content. So it's interesting to see how things, evolve and how certain things go out the window. That's definitely one of those things. I can remember all those behind the scenes and extra cuts and whatever you could do to add to a DVD.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of. I didn't even realize all the work that went into filming and cutting all of the special edition stuff for those things. And every now and then I'll still see a cut on YouTube. Like when a film comes out, there'll be like some behind the scenes stuff, and they'll just release it all straight to YouTube. But it's not nearly as much as what it used to be.
And I mean, now obviously that can still, content is key. That could be used as a reel or, something on the Instagram or, one of those social media sites to draw you in as well.
Right.
I want to ask you, did you have a mentor as you've progressed,
Yeah, I had two fantastic mentors when I started. But besides Justin, the guy who got me involved into it, but once I started working there were two. One has since retired. His name was Graham, and he was very instrumental in my progression as an editor. And the other was editor by the name of Bill Neal. And if any of you guys end up in the trailer industry, you will know that name. He is like the guy, and I just happened to work at the place that he worked at. So became really close friends with him and just basically tried to be a sponge and just learn everything I could. I would whenever you're kind of just starting out, not only do you do TV spots, but you would do cut downs of like senior editors' trailers. And I used to always want to do Bill's cut downs because I would get to kind of dig into his timeline and see how he did things, like how how he got from one section to the next using like sound design and stop downs and stuff to get to use one section to set up the next and so on. And sorry, that was just something for work.
Very good.
And so I always volunteered for that, doing his cut downs, because I really studied what his timelines looked like. And there's a lot to be said about, I mean, if you ever, and I think you could look at him on LinkedIn now too. Like LinkedIn, I was going to say that you were saying how mine was just a chance meeting, because like then LinkedIn didn't exist. So like now you can go on LinkedIn and you could find, I get hit up all the time by people trying to get into this business, wanting to know how I got into it. Just like what I'm talking about here right now. People will randomly hit me up in LinkedIn, kids that are in school and in college. They're like, hey, I live in such and such. I see you're from Louisiana. How did you end up working for this company here? And then I'll just kind of give them the Cliff Notes version of what you guys got. But I would certainly use that as a tool as far as like networking and meeting people that are already in this industry, because like a few people that I've met on LinkedIn, I've actually helped them get their foot in the door where I work, like they're assistants now and stuff. So saying people are always looking, like there's so many of these companies, and depending on what you want to do and you know what because some trailer houses kind of go to different genres, like so research those companies and look at Glassdoor and stuff too, and see like what people are saying about those companies. Some of the companies will grind you out, but a lot of them are really good and have like a really good culture going. So
I like how you mentioned that also, like LinkedIn, honestly, easiest networking, like, obviously going into a conference and meeting people, it's hard. And, you see lots of people talking to them, but LinkedIn is absolutely a safe spot and a safe way to reach out and go, hey, I appreciate your work. We just had a guest speaker on Tuesday who watched Love on the Spectrum, had a brother on the autism spectrum, and reached out to the creator and just said, I just was blown away by, your show, really enjoyed it. And that individual emailed her back and said, well, if, you're in LA, let's get coffee. And, after a coffee and realizing that she likes to edit and wants to be a field producer, got on the show and is now the casting director for the next thing, So it does happen extremely organically when you just reach out to someone and you appreciate the work that they do.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would certainly use that as a tool. Anybody trying to get into this business, for sure. And now most companies, like our company, we have recruiters like who kind of look who you could contact directly, who are constantly looking for talent and people who are trying to get into this business. And so I feel like now more than ever, it's easier to kind of get into it. And now people are way more aware that this is a job. Like I said, years back when I got into it, I had no idea that this was a job. Like I said, and most of the people that I came in with didn't know it was a job. They went to LA to make movies. And they just were like, this to me, I mean, I would say next best thing to me, this is better. Like you're not, I mean, some of these campaigns are long, but it's not as long as making a feature film, obviously. And so we're only there for part of it. And then we're on to the next one. And it's like, I don't know. To me, this is like the best part. Like we're showing the best parts of the films,
yeah. And that's so funny that you mentioned it, right? Like sometimes you do see trailers and then you watch the movie and you're like, damn, the trailer really did hit all of the good things. Like I don't even need to see the movie. I watched the trailer, right?
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that.
Catch all the beats.
Yeah. I love it. Did you ever study, you mentioned like the one guy who's the guy. Right. Did you have to study anyone else? Did you, I know you have Adobe and the Pro Tools. Did you get a special training on that, or did that come with LSU?
LSU. So back in LSU days, we were Final Cut, and then when I moved to LA, we were still Final Cut. When I moved to Buddha Jones, they were Avid, and so that also came with like nobody sat there and taught me Avid. I literally taught myself on those days. And if there was something I was trying to do that I knew I could do in Premiere, I would ask somebody like, "Hey, how do I do this with Avid? Like, how do I do mix downs and how do I make sounds ring out and reverberate in Avid? Like, this is how I would do it in Final Cut, but how do I do it in Avid?" And then when I left Buddha and went to Hammer, they were Premiere. So it's like, luckily now, like most of them translate over. They're all pretty close now. And I've been on Premiere for the past 6 or 7 years at Hammer, but so yeah, no, I had to teach myself. I taught myself all of. I knew Final Cut before ever having a job anywhere, and Premiere too. Like when we used to do skate videos, Premiere was really new, but Premiere was what we cut all the old skate videos on. Like these programs have been around forever. They've been around for so long.
And it's great to be able to do something like, enjoying the skating videos and coming full circle to know that you're using a program that you can now use for a job. And that's also a great lesson, is you never know when you're going to tap back into a programming or technology that, that you used. I want to ask you, you talked about a mentorship type program for young editors. Is that with Hammer? Was that with Buddha? Is that Buddha Jones? Is that just something you created?
Those both. At Buddha, we started it at Buddha, and what it was editors would kind of be partnered up with an assistant editor to help, and when we would meet weekly, and we would meet as a huge group weekly, and they would give out like a 30-second TV spot to the assistant, and then so I would work with my assistant on helping her learn how to kind of craft this TV spot and put it together, and then we would all meet as a group the following week, and all the assistants would show their TV spots, and we would all talk about it as a group and talk about like what was working, what wasn't working, different ideas. So, and then basically they would take notes, and then we would kind of go for version 2. And I would work with her kind of one-on-one in between my work and between her work. And they would give them a certain amount of time to kind of work on it a little bit throughout the day. And then the following week we would get, and we'd show version 2. And once we got those 30-second spots to a good place, we would turn them into 60s. We would like kind of expand on them and make them bigger. And I saw a lot of assistants become editors through that program. And so when I came to Hammer, we started talking about that, because when I came to Hammer, it was a smaller company, which is kind of what I was looking for. Because after I was at Buddha for about 8 years, and at a certain point, we had just had another baby, and the theatrical hours can be really long. Like it wasn't unheard of for me to spend all night at work. Like we had a couch, everybody had a couch in their bay, and it was definitely not unheard of to pull all-nighters. And the hours could be taxing with theatrical. And so when we had she's 7 now, but when we had our daughter, I kind of made a choice to stop down for a minute. I took like a few months sabbatical, and then decided that I was going to try to look for something different, like something that wasn't as grueling. So I started talking to recruiters around, like they call them headhunters, but recruiters. And I think I worked with a guy I think it was the name of the company was Elusive Tiger. And he started telling me about different companies. And so I started interviewing around town, and a lot of what I was seeing was kind of like the same thing that I was leaving. And if I was going to do that, then there was no sense in leaving because I really loved all those guys at Buddha. Like the guys who ran that company were so amazing, and they had like a really great culture and community inside of those inside of that building. And I had a lot of great friends, and but it's just the hours, like the theatrical hours were like really rough. And so he told me about a place called Hammer Creative, and they had been in business since like the 80s, and I had never heard of them. And they were like located, like we were like on Sycamore in Hollywood, and they were like 4 or 5 blocks over, and I had never even known it. And so I went to interview with those guys, and they were primarily video game trailers, which I'm not a huge video game guy. I've never really have been. And so I was like, I'm not sure it's going to be a good fit. And he just kept insisting that I go talk to him. He's like, yeah, it's a smaller company. Like, I think it's exactly what you're looking for. And so I went and met with them, and they were super, super cool guys, and started thinking that it could maybe work. And then I met with them 2 more times. And then finally I went in and just did it. And it was probably the best decision I ever made. And that company has grown. I think when I started working there were like 15 or 20 employees, and now it's got to be upwards of 75 to 80. Like we grew crazy rapidly during COVID. And yeah, it was probably the best decision ever made because it's still rewarding. I'm still cutting trailers. I still cut a lot of horror video game trailers, and so it's all fun, and it's all of the reward without all of the crazy hours. Like they truly have like they always preach the work-life balance, and they've truly delivered on that. It's been good. And so yeah, so that's how I got into doing the video game trailers.
Okay.
Simply just out of just needing a break.
Yeah, and that happens too, right? Like if you can tap into something else and still use the skill set that you have, and I want everyone to understand that you never, the days of working for a company for 40 years are out the window. When you have a skill set like you have, you are a freelance worker, so to speak. And 8 years is a great run at the Buddha spot. And Hammer Creative, sometimes you just need a change. And a lot of people, it's not like starting over, because you have those skill sets, you're still using the same programs. But we hear it all the time with animators who go from like Disney to Netflix animation, and then they go to DreamWorks or something else. And all of them are similar skill sets, but they are different programs that they use. How do you maintain resilient and adaptable when facing setbacks?
As far as like with like work, like
work,
kind of crack and edit, or
yeah.
Yeah, it could be it. And I think this is kind of what brings the reward, because it does get really frustrating. And the first day of cutting a trailer, even after having been doing it for so long, I stare at a blank timeline for a very long time. And then all of a sudden you just kind of start sticking stuff, and you just kind of start throwing stuff and see what sticks. And then before long, you kind of have like a little section going, and then you find out, well, it doesn't really lead to anything, and you're gonna kind of have to start over again. And luckily, usually you get like a good bit of chunk of time or a few days to like kind of start fleshing everything out. But yeah, in my head, I usually try, because I've been doing it for so long, I know like it's gonna be okay. It's like it's gonna end up fine. Because I'm always, for the longest time early in my career, you really have, and I still have it now, you get this imposter syndrome to where you feel like they're going to find out you're not as good as what you kind of present yourself to be on paper. And any kind of creative job, I feel like, is going to bring that. Like I talk to my wife about it all the time, and she has it with her work, like, with painting. And it's a little easier for her because she doesn't have producers and clients that she's presenting her work to. Like hers, it goes out into the world, or it goes out to she does a lot of work with this gallery in Santa Monica, and so it goes to them, and if people like it, they'll buy it, and if not, it'll sit until somebody buys it. Mine has to be liked because they're paying us for a product, and so there's always that doubt, like, this is, this is not good. That this is, this is the one time I'm not going to complete this. I can't figure this out. But nowadays I just like, I always know it's going to work out because it always has every single time.
That's the seasoned veteran in you right there. Like, and that's a great mindset too. Like, it will work itself out one way or another. Yeah.
I will say the best thing to do, and what I've learned to do, is just get away from it for at least a minute, or go take a walk. And I even used to do this when we were working at our building. Well, like at Hammer, we were in the CBS building, and I would go down and take a walk and walk a few times around the block, and sometimes even just as something as simple as that, it'll come to you. It used to come, LA commutes, because I lived in Santa Monica, offices in Hollywood. That hour and 20-minute commute, I a lot of times would think about it then. Or like, I know what it is. Like, I know what I need to do. And now, this just happened to me last night, like 5 o'clock this morning. Like what I'm working on right now, I had holes last night, and it hit me. And working at home like 5 this morning, I just got out of bed. I came down here, threw it all in, and that's like the beauty of working at home, is like whenever it hits you, you could just do it. To whereas like when we were at an office, if it hit me in the middle of the night, I would just like write it down or write an idea down. But yeah, that's how I deal with adversity now. I just kind of know in the back of my head that it's going to be okay. But you gotta stop dealing with the imposter syndrome thing. At least everybody I talk to.
I feel like everyone has the imposter syndrome. It's just that little doubt in the back of our head. I want to ask you, how collaborative is the work you do? You mentioned sound design, you mentioned sound effects. Is that a whole separate group that's working on the sound design? No, are you in charge of everything?
Yeah, that's all me. Well, how I usually start is I'll pull like, we have like sound effects libraries and sound design libraries, and once we kind of we'll get like kind of as an editor, we have writers, and so we'll get like a script that's kind of makes like a rough outline of kind of what the client approved of, what kind of what they want to see, what marks they want to hit in a trailer. And so based on that, I'll start kind of doing like music pulls and sound design pulls, and from there I'll cut together a V1, and then I'll get producers involved, and I'll show them kind of where I'm at. And from there, then it turns collaborative. Then it's like producer and editor are kind of working together to kind of get it all, put together. And then it goes to client, and then of course then they have notes. So as an editor, you'll get internal notes, a couple of rounds, and then once it goes out of the door, you'll get client feedback, and then it's all over again. Like we go to send V2 out, you'll get internal notes. And then, because the internal notes will come from a little bit from the writer, but mostly from the producer or producers that are working on with the client directly. As an editor, we never really deal with the clients. It's usually kind of filtered to a producer, which is probably a good thing, especially in theatrical, because a lot of times in theatrical, those clients can be pretty mean, and so it's probably better to shield the editor from some of the harsh criticism.
I was going to say, you have to be understand you are going to have constructive criticism.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure it's never where you shoot something out of there like, yes, perfect, done. There's after edits until everyone's happy, and you just got to be patient, grin and bear it, and get it done.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it's a funny thing, because when my daughter was in kindergarten, I was picking her up from school. She's in first grade now, so this was last year. I was picking her up from school, and her teacher asked, she said, we were talking about what everybody's parents did, and we know what your wife does, but we're confused about what you do because your daughter said that you have meetings and you show things and you keep going until they say it's good, and then I could stop, and you could stop working. That's literally how she explained my job. So they just wanted to know what it is that I did to where she got this. And so yeah, that's to her looking, that's literally, it's like I just keep putting this stuff out until they say it's good enough, you know?
That's awesome. How innocent. My dad works long hours and he puts stuff out until people like it. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
looking back like on your journey, with all the projects you've worked on, what are your top three that you're just like, wow, I love it. Love the work I did on that.
Oh, um,
And that could be theatrical, that could be video
yeah,
game.
there's a lot, there's a quite a few, like Woman in Black 2 was a trailer that I cut that I really loved. I did like the second Split trailer for the M. Night Shyamalan movie. That was really fun. Um, and games. Oh, I kind of think for Ballers, the MT of the HBO show, that was really cool too. Um, I did a lot of work on the Conjuring movies. Those were fun. And then games, I did like Callisto Protocol, which was really fun. And right now I'm doing like what I'm working on now is an Indiana Jones game that comes out in like a year or so. Um, I get to work on really cool stuff. I mean, it's all really good. I mean, I will say this, the thing about games that's really cool compared to theatrical is like at theatrical, you're kind of at the mercy of what you have, what the movie is. But with games, like it's pretty amazing what they could do with video games because we have capture artists that go in and basically play through the game and use set up cameras within the game, and they have these debug builds where they can kind of make anything. Like they could shoot any, like say, I need this guy to do this and I need this shot. They could create it within the game, even if it doesn't exist in the game.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, and that's another job that people like my nephews are always freaking out because like we have capture artists and literally their game is to shoot footage, like play through video games and shoot footage within the video game for us to cut with. And that's another job that people probably don't know exists, like a game capture artist. Like, and those guys do really well. And what you know, what a way to kind of like show your parents that you never wasted time playing video games.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, those guys have a really great career, and they play video games all day long. That's
Yeah.
literally all they do.
We had somebody who similar situation with composing music for video games and was like, told you all that video game playing kind of worked out. Like,
right?
you know, I'm paying my bills and then some. I love it. I want to ask, what is the biggest piece of advice you would give to your younger self with all that you've experienced, you know, the jump from LSU to LA, working with the two companies? Biggest piece of advice you'd give to a younger Jimmy?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe to go easy on yourself. I mean, there was a long time where I would really beat myself up over things as far as like career wise, and but I guess you just got to know it's going to work out. Like, you know, because I was already like 30 years old when I got into this business. Like, you know, I'm always jealous of the people. Like, if I could give myself advice, I would go straight into this. Like, if I would have known, I would have went straight into this like early because, yeah, I feel like I wasted a lot of good years, like, you know, doing, you know, the public broadcast and commercials, and just was not very happy at all doing it until I found this. And as like as much of a grind, even with theatrical, as much as a grind it could be, it was still like fun. Like it was still like a great like when I tell people what I do, they're like, "What? That's the coolest thing ever." And I mean, and it is. It's one of the coolest jobs you could have, especially when you could do it from your house.
Yeah.
Literally, like I can't complain about anything. But yeah, I wish I would have gotten into it sooner. But then on the same hand, that just goes to show it's never really too late to find what you love to do. I mean, I know 30 is not like super old, but I mean, if I just think of like how comfortable I could have been if I would have started doing this when I was 20 or 21.
Right. But yes, you are totally right with it's never too late. And
No.
as soon as you find what it is that you're passionate about and you turn that passion into a paycheck, you stay there and you enjoy it. And it's great. How awesome is that to be like, I got the coolest job. I could do it from home and I don't have anything negative to say about my job.
Really don't.
If you were to ask thousands of people out there, 9 out of 10 can tell you all the things they hate about their job. So I think that's absolutely amazing. I want to open up. Go ahead. I see you had a comment. You wanted to say something, Jimmy. I don't want to cut you
Oh,
off.
no. I was just going to say, yeah, I am definitely one of the lucky ones because I have a lot of friends and relatives that do things that they absolutely hate doing. And like they have that thing where the Sunday scaries where they're like, they just dread Sundays because Monday have to go to work. I can honestly say I haven't had that in a very long time.
See, it's beautiful. I love it. I'm going to open up the floor to questions. Raise your hand if you have a question for Jimmy. It can be in regards to video game edits, theatrical edits. Night Shyamalan, by the way, always has the best trailers. Those, his stuff always hooks you in and always leaves you like guessing. And he's one of those directors that have the colors that mean things, the characters, and you're always left going like, ooh, what's going to be the twist? So,
Right.
And Split was a fantastic, Unbreakable. All of those movies are great. Presley, go ahead, ask the first question.
First off, I want to add a comment. With M. Night Shyamalan, he has a new movie coming out later this year called Trap, and I've seen the trailer, looks pretty good. But anyways, for a question for Jimmy, like, what is the dream project that you want to edit for a theatrical film?
My dream project would be Tarantino's last film.
Yeah, Quentin Tarantino. It's crazy. This is his last movie.
Well, yeah, it has to be his last film because I have had the pleasure of working on a few TV campaigns for his previous films. Never cut a trailer for him because those always went to like the big dog, like huge dog guys. But I always did get to cut on the TV campaigns for them. And being that this is his last one coming up, I would love to cut the trailer for his last film.
My dad used to work for Quentin Tarantino. Had his old production company called A Band Apart. He was like the head for like production for film and TV.
Wow, that's amazing. That is very cool.
It's interesting too. You were talking, Jimmy, about like the 3 parts, like that beginning, that middle, and the end. And then I always think about a Quentin Tarantino where it's always like he could start it at the end, just however he wants to do it.
Right.
I can't remember back to his trailers if the trailers were very similar, where it was all off timeline, or if it kept to a timeline, or if it even touched that.
Yeah, I think for the most part, like I don't remember back what the marketing for Pulp Fiction was, but I think other than that, they were all pretty straightforward, trailers as far as like the marketing. And like the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that was one of my mentors, Bill Neal, cut that trailer with the Neil Diamond cue, and trailer was fantastic. The movie was fantastic. But yeah, it was pretty much. It was the trailer for that one. I know for sure was just basically what a trailer usually is, just kind of like a 3-act structure with kind of just laying out the movie.
Perfect. Christian Batista, last question.
All right. You've been dodging the question for like 15 years. What would you say is your pride and joy? What's your magnum opus of all your trailers?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. Probably the trailers that I like best are probably some that never finished. Like, whenever you're cutting trailers, you're cutting against other trailer houses, and they'll have 5 or 6 houses going at a time for trailers, and then it's almost kind of like the last one standing is who they go with, and so you don't always finish trailers, even campaigns that you work on. You could work at 10 to 15 versions and not get the finish. And so I'd probably say some of my favorite trailers that I cut were ones that never even saw the light of day, probably. Like I remember there was a remake. It was an old 70s movie, but they did a remake for it. It was called The Town That Dreaded Sundown. And I cut a trailer for that movie that I really, really liked. It had a Patsy Cline song in it, and literally it got cut just because they didn't want to license the song. And so I always thought that one was really good. And another one that stands out is I don't know if you guys remember the Hannibal TV show on NBC. I did the trailer for the Hannibal TV show that was really good, and all the executives at NBC loved it. And I cut it with Sounds of Silence, with Simon and Garfunkel's song, and they wouldn't clear it. Like Simon and Garfunkel wouldn't clear it because they didn't want their song associated with that genre of TV. And so that was another like really great trailer that never saw the light of day. I mean, I still have them. I keep them, but
I was going to say that would be cool with that Simon Garfunkel song too.
Oh, it was amazing.
It's crazy
it was
where,
so good.
And I imagine it's a pretty pricey ticket to clear a Simon Garfunkel versus, someone who composes something that sounds like Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. They were going to pay it because they ended up licensing a cover of Stand By Me. So they were going to pay for the license, and he just wouldn't approve it. Like Paul Simon wouldn't let his song be associated
with beautiful Hannibal leading people. I get it.
Yeah,
it happens.
Yeah, so
that's like worse than the fall of Rome.
Awesome. All right. Well, Jimmy, I want to thank you again for your time tonight.
Yeah, of course.
Extremely amazing. I think it's fantastic to have the next generation of creatives here that, with an editing background and knowing how to use that software, that there are different houses that work on certain genres, video games to trailers of movies, obviously commercials. And if you just got to find your niche and what exactly it is that you love. But I think it's extremely inspiring to talk to someone who has found what they love and loves what they do. I think that's half the battle of trying to find the right job. And when you're happy and you don't have those Sunday blues that Monday is lurking.
Exactly.
You're definitely doing the right thing. I want to wish you continued success. I love the mentoring that you're doing. And if we can figure out a time around when you will be going into the office, I would love to schedule a thing for those that are interested in editing and in that part of media.
Yeah, for sure. I'll keep in touch. I want to say it'd be sometime in July.
It's perfect.
Like next quarterly meeting. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you guys. Thanks for
Have a wonderful evening. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
As we conclude another enriching episode, we hope you found inspiration in the stories shared today. Let's take a moment to honor Yes I Can's role in bringing Breaking the Biz to life. Yes I Can's commitment to empowering young people with disabilities through education, advocacy, and mentorship shines brightly, paving paths of opportunity and dialogue. This podcast celebrates the organization's dedication to nurturing talent and facilitating impactful discussions. Breaking the Biz is more than a podcast. It's a part of Yes I Can's broader mission to amplify voices, dismantle barriers, and craft a world that's more inclusive and accessible for everyone. Each episode is a chapter in our shared narrative of progress, education, and empowerment, driven by the spirit of Yes I Can. Thank you for spending your time with us on Breaking the Biz. Continue to challenge the status quo and share stories that resonate. Until our paths cross again, let's keep transforming aspirations into achievements and infuse every endeavor with optimism. Here's to advancing the landscape of the entertainment industry, one episode at a time. I'm your host, William Felber. See you next time.